My family just arranged my marriage to my 13-year-old cousin. There's only one way to stop it. I was 23 when my family decided it was time for me to collect my first wife. They already had her picked out, my 13-year-old cousin Fatima, whose mother bragged about her early development. You see, every girl in my family knew the rule. The day you get your first period was the day you got married. It didn't matter whether you still played with dolls or couldn't reach the kitchen counter. If you could bleed, you could breed. I was 9 when I watched my oldest brother Ahmed get married to his first wife on his 21st birthday. She was 12 years old. By the time I was 15, Ahmed had buried that first wife and was on to his third. Pregnancy complications, everyone said. Your wife's youth was like a currency. Whichever man had the youngest, most obedient wife was the most praised in society. At family gatherings, my uncles would compete like kids comparing prizes. Amina was only 11 when I claimed her, Uncle Karim would boast, holding up her photo. In response, Uncle Hassan would lean back, smirking. That's nothing. I got my Yasmin at 10, and she still had her baby teeth. The jewelry shop didn't even make wedding rings that small. For years, I played along, smiling when they discussed my future, agreeing that 14 was getting too old for a bride. Inside, my stomach churned. But what could I do? Speaking against it meant exile of you and all the women in the family. 3 months before my wedding date, I found Fatima in our family's utility room with a bottle of bleach. Her hands were shaking so bad she couldn't open it. When she saw me, she dropped to her knees. Please don't tell. Please, I can't. I know what happens. I've seen what happens. I took the bottle, sat on the floor next to her, and for the first time in my life, I said out loud, I know, I don't want this either. She sat there with her mouth wide open, staring at me like I had 5 heads. Suddenly, she lunged at me for a hug. Can you please tell them I'm crazy? Tell them I'm possessed or cursed. They won't want me if I'm insane. Bad blood ruins the lineage. That sentence changed everything, because she was right. My family obsessed over bloodlines, genetic purity, producing perfect sons. Mental illness was the ultimate contamination. I'd seen them reject marriage proposals over rumors of a great aunt who talked to walls. Within a week, I taught Fatima to twitch at dinner tables, mumbling numbers in corners, scratching symbols on her arms with her fingernails. I coached her through episodes, taught her to roll her eyes back, speak in gibberish, and claim she saw demons in the wallpaper. She put on such an award-winning act that sometimes even I was disturbed. My mother was horrified. She was perfect 2 weeks ago, she wailed to my father. Now look at her. What if it spreads to the children? The wedding was quietly postponed. Word spread through the girl cousins like wildfire. My sister Amira, 14 and recently bloomed, came to me next. Then her friend Noor, then Noor's sister. Before I knew it, I was running midnight coaching sessions in my car, teaching girls how to manifest madness. Dead eyes are crucial, I'd instruct. Stare through people, not at them. Laugh at nothing. Cry without reason. But timing is everything. Save the worst episodes for when marriage talks begin. Some girls were naturals. My cousin Layla developed a fictional friend she'd have full conversations with during family gatherings. She'd serve tea to empty chairs, scolding invisible children. Her father postponed 3 marriage proposals, terrified of producing defective grandchildren. Others needed more work. Soft-spoken Mariam couldn't sell the performance until I taught her to channel her real terror into fake hysteria. Think about your wedding night, I'd tell her. Now scream. The sounds she made convinced everyone. Within 6 months, we had a full network. 15 marriageable girls, all displaying various forms of borderline schizophrenia. Family meetings turned to chaos as girls would trigger each other. One would start humming, another would begin rocking. Suddenly 3 were speaking in unison about visions of black water. The elders panicked. They brought in healers who charged fortunes to wave incense around, doctors who prescribed sedatives, religious leaders who performed exorcisms that left the girls even more convincingly traumatized. I thought we could maintain it indefinitely. The girls were protecting each other, older ones coaching younger ones as they came of age. We had a system, and my family may have been PDF files, but they weren't stupid. So after a year of failed cures, they started noticing patterns. How the madness only struck marriageable girls. How symptoms peaked during wedding seasons. How I, somehow, was always nearby when episodes occurred. The final gathering happened on a Thursday. 23 of us were at my uncle's house for his daughter's engagement. The plan was to have her fake her worst episode yet. But when my uncle called her forward to receive her engagement blessing, she looked across the room and locked eyes with Fatima. Suddenly, her hand reached into her pocket and she was downing over a dozen pills in one go. We were forced to call the police. Sarah collapsed as paramedics burst through the door, her father screaming at her to vomit while she whispered the groom's age to the female EMT. The room erupted into chaos. Men scrambled for phones, women shrieked, and the younger girls pressed themselves against walls, eyes wide with terror. Uncle Hassan grabbed my arm, his fingers digging into my flesh. You did this, he hissed, while his other hand worked his phone furiously. I caught a glimpse of the screen, a group chat titled Emergency Protocol with messages flying. 20 pills, I shouted to the paramedics over the noise. She took 20 pills. The EMT working on Sarah looked up sharply. How old is she asked, and I watched every man in the room shift nervously, their eyes darting between exits. From across the room, Sarah's 11-year-old sister started signing frantically to the other girls. I recognized some of the gestures from our sessions. Danger, hide, run. The younger ones began edging toward the kitchen door. Then Fatima did something that stopped everyone cold. She stood up straight, dropped her vacant stare, and spoke in a clear, strong voice for the first time in months. She took 20 pills because she's being sold to a 45-year-old man. The room exploded. Fathers lunged for their daughters, dragging them toward exits. Tables overturned. Someone's phone shattered against the tile floor. Through the chaos, I noticed one of the paramedics had pulled out her phone, snapping photos of the decorated engagement stage with its child-sized throne. I had seconds to decide. The marriage contracts were still in Uncle Hassan's study. The evidence we'd collected over months was hidden in various locations. But Sarah was dying on the floor, foam at her lips, her body convulsing. I chose Sarah. I dropped to my knees beside the EMTs, rattling off everything I knew about her medical history, allergies, the exact timing of when she'd taken the pills. Behind me, I heard car doors slamming as 3 girls were dragged away by their fathers. Police sirens wailed outside. Through the window, I saw families scattering like roaches when lights flip on. In the kitchen, smoke billowed up. Someone was burning documents in the sink. The acrid smell of burning paper mixed with incense and fear sweat. Officer Martinez was first through the door. I'd seen him at community events, knew he understood our culture's darker corners. His eyes swept the scene, the overturned furniture, the smoke, the young girls being hustled out back doors. He called for backup, specifically requesting the specialized unit. They lifted Sarah onto the gurney. Despite being unconscious, her right hand stayed clenched in a tight fist. The female EMT tried to pry it open to insert an IV, but Sarah's fingers wouldn't budge. Uncle Hassan cornered me by the stairs while everyone focused on Sarah. His breath was hot on my face, smelling of cardamom and rage. "Every girl will pay for this betrayal," he said quietly, "starting with your sister." Before I could respond, my mother appeared and slapped me hard across the face. The crack echoed through the room. "You've destroyed us," she screamed. "Our family's honor, centuries of tradition, gone because of your weakness." I noticed cousins had their phones out, live streaming her performance. The family was already controlling the narrative. The EMTs wheeled Sarah toward the ambulance. As they maneuvered the gurney through the doorway, her clenched hand relaxed slightly. Something small and black fell onto the white sheet, a flash drive. The EMT picked it up, frowning at the label written in Sarah's careful handwriting, "Insurance." Sarah's eyes fluttered open for just a moment as they loaded her into the ambulance. Her lips moved, no sound coming out, but I read the words clearly. "Check your car." The ambulance doors slammed shut. Police were separating family members for questioning. I watched Uncle Hassan speaking earnestly to an officer, gesturing at me, his face a mask of concern. Other men nodded along, their stories already synchronized. At the hospital, Sarah's father hid us there. I found him at the nurses' station, speaking rapidly to the staff. "She's been showing signs of mental illness for months," he insisted. "Delusions, paranoia. She needs psychiatric hold for her own safety." The nurse taking notes glanced at Sarah's chart, then at the bruises visible on her arms. Old bruises, fingerprint-shaped. I tried to approach Sarah's room but hit a wall of hospital security. Her father had already filed paperwork. "I'm sorry," the guard said, not unkindly. "Family only, and there's a note here that you're not to have contact with the patient." My phone buzzed non-stop. Messages from the network. 3 girls texting that they were being locked in basements. Their fake madness now being used as justification for imprisonment. "They say it's for our own good," Layla wrote, "until the episodes pass." I ran to my car to check Sarah's message. Underneath, magnetic and covered in road grime, was a GPS tracker, but that wasn't what she'd meant. In my glove compartment, wrapped in a plastic bag, was a notebook I'd never seen before. Sarah's handwriting filled every page. Dates, names, ages, marriage contracts going back 5 years, deaths marked with red circles. My phone rang. Unknown number. "You've been teaching young girls to lie," a man's voice said, "to corrupt their minds with fantasies. What kind of man spends time alone with little girls in his car at night?" The accusation hit like ice water. I realized how they'd flip our story. Not a rescue network, a predator grooming vulnerable children. Child services arrived at the hospital while I stood frozen in the parking lot. Through the glass doors, I watched Uncle Hassan pull out a folder. Even from this distance, I could see official letterhead. Psychiatric evaluations. All dated months ago, before our network even started. All signed by the same name, Dr. Rashid, who'd married my cousin 3 years prior. I needed those marriage contracts from Uncle Hassan's house. The evidence that would prove what we were really fighting. I drove there, knowing it was probably a trap, but having no choice. The house was dark, except for his study window. I climbed through the back garden, the way I had as a child stealing sweets. The study door was cracked open. I slipped inside, phone ready to photograph everything. "I've been waiting for you." Fatima's father sat in Uncle Hassan's chair, fingers steepled. "We need to discuss your options." My hand went to the door, but 2 of my cousins stepped out from behind it. I was trapped. "It's simple," he continued. "Marry Fatima tomorrow, properly, traditionally. All charges dropped, this unfortunate misunderstanding forgotten. Orient." He pulled out his phone and played a recording. My voice, clear as day, alone with young girls in my car, teaching them to act. Without context, it sounded like something else entirely. "Coaching them to lie to their parents," he said, filling their heads with stories, meeting them secretly. What would police think? The imam arrived then, still in his formal robes. He looked at me with disappointment. "This should be handled within our community," he said to Fatima's father. "These girls need spiritual guidance, not outside interference." One of the nurses from the hospital, a young woman who'd been kind earlier, appeared in the doorway. She leaned close to me as she passed. "The imam's daughter disappeared when she was 14, she whispered. "Some say she ran, some say other things." 3 families had already coordinated their stories. The girls were mentally ill, triggered by my dangerous influence. I was a predator who'd taken advantage of their conditions. The fake madness we'd created as protection was now being weaponized against us. My sister Amira had been pulled from school. My mother posted photos on social media. Amira's phone smashed on the kitchen floor, captioned with concerns about negative influences and protecting our children. Amira stood behind her in the photo, face blank, the dead-eyed stare I'd taught her now serving their purposes. I tried calling Aunt Rashida, the only adult who'd ever questioned our traditions. Her daughter answered, whispering quickly. "They put Mom on a plane to Yemen last night. She fought them. They sedated her. The line went dead." Back at the hospital, a psychiatrist evaluated Sarah while her father translated. I watched through a window as her father twisted every word. Sarah's desperate truth became symptoms of psychosis in his retelling. Her accusations became delusions. Her fear became paranoia. I couldn't stand it anymore. That Friday, I went to the mosque during prayers. Hundreds of men knelt in rows. I stood up during the sermon and shouted the truth. "Sarah is being sold to a 45-year-old man. Our daughters are being trafficked as child brides." Hands grabbed me from all directions. I was dragged out, thrown onto the concrete steps. Men I'd known my whole life stood over me, their faces twisted with rage. But some of the younger men hung back, uncomfortable. A few women peering from the women's section had tears in their eyes. The foundation was cracking, but I didn't know yet how deep the rot went, or how many more girls would pay the price for our resistance. As I picked myself up from the mosque steps, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. A photo of Amira, her dead-eyed stare now genuine, holding a sign, "My brother is sick. He made us all sick too." The war for our girls' freedom had only just begun. Uncle Hassan started dating my ex-girlfriend Priya, showing up at my workplace with her. She wore a gold necklace with a pendant that matched the child-sized wedding rings from our family's collection. My co-workers noticed my reaction when they walked into the cafe where I worked part-time. Priya avoided eye contact while Uncle Hassan ordered coffee, his arm possessively around her waist. An anonymous report appeared at Child Protective Services, claiming I had inappropriate access to minor females. The social worker who called asked pointed questions about my time alone with young girls. My manager overheard the conversation and told me to take the week off while they sorted things out. Back home, I discovered my childhood journals scattered across my bed. Pages I'd never written were inserted between real entries. The handwriting was close to mine, but not quite right. New passages described disturbing thoughts about young girls, fantasies that made my skin crawl. My mother stood in the doorway watching me read them. "I've been documenting your illness for years," she said calmly, "just in case we ever needed proof. A mother knows when something's wrong with her son." The forgeries went back a decade. She'd been building this insurance policy since I was 13. Every normal teenage thought twisted into something sinister. Every interaction with female cousins reframed as predatory interest. My 7-year-old cousin Aliyah came to visit with her parents. During dinner, she announced to everyone that I was sick like the other girls. She recited Uncle Hassan's exact words with practiced precision. When her male teacher walked past our table at the restaurant, she flinched and pressed herself against her mother. The teacher noticed and frowned. Security footage from Sarah's engagement party surfaced online, edited to remove all context. The video showed only me agitating young girls, teaching them to act strangely. Comments poured in, calling me a monster. My face became recognizable in our community as the man who corrupted innocent children. The family lawyer filed for conservatorship over me, citing mental health concerns and endangerment of minors. The paperwork claimed I suffered from delusions that made me a danger to myself and others. They wanted control of my finances, my medical decisions, my freedom of movement. I remembered my brother Ahmed's phone was still active on the family plan. Late at night, I used his login to access the family WhatsApp group. The messages made my blood run cold. They were moving marriage contracts to a storage unit. Uncle Hassan coordinated everything, assigning different family members to transport documents. Ahmed's last message before his death caught my eye. He'd been asking questions about his first wife's accident. The group went silent after that message. 3 days later, Ahmed died in a car crash. The investigators ruled it accidental. I needed the storage unit location, but that meant breaking into Uncle Hassan's email. The password reset went to his phone. I'd have to get close to him somehow. My childhood best friend Kareem worked as a police officer now. He found me at the park where we used to play as kids. "There's a warrant coming," he said quietly. "Federal investigation. They think you're running some kind of cult. You should leave town." But I couldn't leave, not with the girls still trapped. I gathered all the evidence I had and went to the local news station. The reporter seemed interested until I mentioned which families were involved. Her expression changed. She made excuses about needing to verify facts. Later, I learned the station owner's daughter had married into one of the allied families. The story died before it began. Sarah's condition worsened in the hospital. She needed emergency surgery, but her parents refused consent until she recanted her lies about the forced marriage. The doctors were bound by law. They could only watch as she deteriorated. 5 allied families mobilized like an army. Girls vanished from schools overnight. Mothers quit their jobs to homeschool. The community closed ranks, protecting their traditions with military precision. Social media filled with posts about protecting children from dangerous influences and mental contagion. I realized this network extended far beyond my family. The practice wasn't dying out. It was organizing, adapting, becoming more sophisticated. At 3 a.m., someone knocked on my apartment door. Through the peephole, I saw Fatima, still in her nightgown, clutching a small bag. I opened the door, and she stumbled inside, her face streaked with tears. "They moved up the wedding," she gasped. "Tomorrow morning. I stole these." She opened her bag to show birth control pills, just in case I couldn't escape in time. Her brothers would track her here soon. We both knew it. I gave her my car keys and all the cash I had. "Drive to the women's shelter on Madison. Ask for Jennifer. She knows our situation. Come with me," she begged. "They'll follow me. You have a better chance alone." 20 minutes after she left, her brothers arrived. They dragged her from my car 2 blocks away. She broke character completely, screaming the truth about the forced marriages, until one of them covered her mouth. Neighbors watched from windows, but no one intervened. Uncle Hassan visited me the next morning. "Leave the country," he said simply. "Today, we'll buy your ticket, or stay and watch Fatima's wedding tonight." I refused. That evening, they married her to a man older than her father. I couldn't get close to the venue, but someone live-streamed parts of it. Fatima stood like a statue, the dead-eyed stare now real, not performed. Sarah's nurse, Priya, not my ex-girlfriend, but a different woman with the same name, approached me in the hospital cafeteria. She rolled up her sleeve to show old scars around her ankle. "Chains," she said simply. "I escaped a similar situation 10 years ago. I've been documenting everything happening here." She revealed the truth that made my stomach drop. 23 families across 3 states practiced this tradition, all interconnected through marriages, creating a web of abuse spanning generations. Every girl I thought I'd saved was already on a list for specific matches. Our madness strategy had just reshuffled the deck, pushing younger girls forward to replace the mad ones. My mother cornered me at home with an ultimatum. "Testify that the girls are mentally ill, that you manipulated them, or I'll testify that you molested Amira." My sister stood behind her, that dead stare I'd taught her now genuine trauma. "She's lying," Amira said mechanically, "but she'll make me say it's true." I refused. Within hours, my mother father filed a police report with the fabricated journal entries as evidence. The investigation opened immediately. Paranoid now, I started recording every interaction. A hidden camera in my jacket, audio recorders in my pockets. I became like them, constantly documenting, building evidence, preparing for war. I confronted my father at his workplace about Ahmed's first wife. His co-workers pretended not to notice our heated conversation. She was too weak, he finally admitted. Some girls just can't handle their duties. Ahmed knew the risks when he married her. She was 12, I said. She was ready, he replied. The family decided. The storage unit location came from an unexpected source. The family doctor who'd signed the psychiatric evaluations approached me outside the mosque. His own daughter had just turned 11, just gotten her period. I'll tell you where the documents are, he said, if you promise to protect her. But when I arrived at the storage unit, security footage showed Uncle Hassan had already removed everything. He'd anticipated betrayal from within. Kareem couldn't delay my arrest any longer. Federal investigators were building a case against me as a cult leader who'd brainwashed young girls. The family's narrative was winning. 3 girls attempted suicide on the same night. 2 succeeded. Layla was one of them. At her funeral, I stood to speak about the truth of her death, but male relatives physically restrained me. Her father gave a speech about mental illness, about protecting our children from dangerous influences. He stared at me the entire time. Child Services removed me from the approved visitor list for all minor relatives. The social worker apologized, said the family seemed very concerned about my influence on the children. She had no idea she was enabling their system. My bank accounts were frozen after the family claimed I was mentally incompetent and stealing from them. Years of savings gone. I couldn't afford a lawyer. The public defender assigned to my case was overwhelmed and uninterested in cultural complications. Priya the nurse revealed the worst news yet. Fatima's marriage that morning hadn't been just a wedding. It was payment for a debt. A previous bride had died in the family, and blood money was owed. Fatima was the settlement. I finally snapped. I broke into the venue where another child wedding was happening, live streaming everything on social media. The bride looked no older than 12. I broadcast for 3 minutes before being struck unconscious by the groom's brothers. 50,000 people saw the stream before it cut off. I woke up in the hospital with a concussion and assault charges filed by Fatima's new husband. She visited once, a black eye poorly covered with makeup. I fell, she said mechanically, while her husband watched from the doorway. Uncle Hassan visited next, showing me a video on his phone. It was footage of me teaching the girls to lie, edited to look like grooming sessions. This is what the jury will see, he said. Your confession would be better for everyone. That night, Amira managed to sneak me a message written on a candy wrapper, passed through a sympathetic nurse. I remember everything. They made me lie. Help us. To save Amira from being married off, I made a choice. I confessed to conspiracy charges, admitting to brainwashing the girls, but not abuse. My lawyer said it was the best deal I'd get. During my transport to Holding, I found something that made my blood freeze. In the evidence box was a marriage ledger. My name was listed as the one who'd arranged Sarah's marriage. The signature was perfect, forged using documents from my car loan. Sarah's surgery deadline approached. 6 hours, the doctor warned, or she'd face permanent damage. Her parents wouldn't consent unless I signed a statement taking full blame for her mental break. I understood Uncle Hassan's real goal then. My confession would invalidate every girl's testimony. They'd all be dismissed as coached lies. The madness strategy we'd created to protect them would be used to prove they were mentally incompetent witnesses. The court-appointed psychiatrist evaluated me, while my family submitted years of fabricated evidence. The doctor's questions seemed coached, leading me towards specific admissions. I had to convince him I was sane while everything pointed to elaborate delusions. To save Sarah's life, I agreed to plead guilty. But as I signed the confession, I added a coded message in the margins in Arabic. Only the girls who'd attended our sessions would understand it. The sparrow still flies at midnight. It was our emergency phrase, meaning the network lived on. Sarah got her surgery. She survived. But when she woke up, a marriage certificate waited on her bedside table, dated for her 16th birthday. The confession I'd signed was already being used to discredit all CPS investigations into the family. The psychiatric evaluations would be used to institutionalize the most rebellious girls. 3 were committed for shared psychotic disorder, allegedly caused by my influence. The treatment included memory suppression therapy. They were being erased. Priya lost her job after family members filed complaints about her obsession with their culture. She was branded a Raxt, a troublemaker. The hospital quietly let her go. In jail awaiting trial, I met my cellmate Yusef. His daughter had died in our family at 15. Pregnancy complications, they'd said. He'd been planning revenge for 3 years, gathering evidence, waiting for the right moment. He showed me photos that made me vomit. His daughter's body showed signs of violence, not medical complications. The injuries matched what I'd heard about Ahmed's first wife. Same patterns, same methods. The death certificates were signed by the same doctor. I traded commissary items to get Yusef's girlfriend to visit the institutionalized girls as a volunteer art teacher. She recognized the signs immediately. The girls were drugged but fighting, leaving messages in their artwork. Prison visitor logs revealed Uncle Hassan had been visiting specific inmates. All were convicted of domestic murders. He was recruiting, building a network of men who'd already proven they could kill their wives and get away with it. To get evidence out, I had to attack a guard and extend my sentence. During the disciplinary hearing, I slipped photos to a female board member who was a mandated reporter. She recognized the cultural markers, understood what she was seeing. That night, Yusef died in a prison accident. His testimony about his daughter's murder would never be heard. The evidence he'd gathered disappeared from his cell. Uncle Hassan's new strategy was revealed through intercepted letters. He was arranging marriages between institutionalized girls and prisoners who needed citizenship. The marriages could happen without the girls even being present. Mental illness made wives unable to testify against husbands. It was a perfect system. Every protection we'd built became a weapon against us. The documented mental illness invalidated all testimony. The fake madness we'd performed was now real trauma that silenced them forever. A federal investigation opened, but it focused on me as a cult leader, not the family as traffickers. The narrative was set. I was the villain who'd driven innocent girls insane with my delusions. Yusef's photos haunted me even after his death. The matching injuries on his daughter and Ahmed's first wife pointed to a specific killer, someone who'd signed both marriage certificates. I cross-referenced the signatures with Sarah's notebook entries. The same elegant script appeared on 12 death certificates over 15 years. 2 institutionalized girls managed to communicate through their art therapy sessions. Their paintings showed recurring symbols, a sparrow at midnight, just like my coded message. The volunteer art teacher, Alexandra, smuggled out their work. One painting depicted a storage shed behind an old training ground. Another showed numbers that looked like coordinates. Prison visitor logs revealed more disturbing patterns. Uncle Hassan wasn't just visiting convicted murderers, he was specifically targeting men whose wives had died within a year of marriage, men who'd walked free on technicalities, men who understood the system. I watched helplessly as the institutionalized girls' marriages were processed. The paperwork was flawless, psychiatric evaluations declaring them incompetent, family consent as legal guardians, citizenship applications for the grooms. 3 girls were married while sedated in their hospital beds. Then something unexpected happened. Sarah escaped. The medical transport van carrying her to a long-term psychiatric facility reported an empty gurney at their destination. Security footage showed Sarah had unstrapped herself during a bathroom stop, slipping out through an unlocked window. Within hours, she was live streaming from a hidden location. "I'm in the shed where it all began," she said to her phone camera, her hospital gown dirty and torn. Behind her, I recognized the utility room where I'd first found Fatima with the bleach bottle. They think I'm crazy. They think we're all crazy. But I remember everything. The family manhunt began immediately. Uncle Hassan coordinated search teams while my transport bus to federal prison took an unexpected detour past the search area. Through the barred windows, I watched family members combing through neighborhoods. Sarah's live stream continued sporadically. She showed pages from hidden notebooks, marriage contracts she'd photographed before the raid. Her viewership climbed. 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 people watching a young girl expose generational abuse. Then the storm hit. An unexpected downpour flooded the old training ground where Sarah was hiding. Water rose quickly in the low-lying area. She had to leave the shed or drown. Her live stream showed her wading through knee-deep water, hypothermia setting in, nowhere safe to go. Both the family search party and sympathetic community members raced to find her first. I pressed my face against the transport bus window, recognizing the streets, knowing exactly where she'd go next. The bridge over the river where we used to feed ducks as children. The bus driver, a woman who'd been watching the situation unfold on her phone at red lights, made an unauthorized stop. "Bathroom emergency," she announced to the guards, parking within view of the bridge. I saw them converge, Uncle Hassan's car from one direction, a women's shelter van from another. Sarah stood on the bridge railing, soaked and shivering, looking down at the churning water below. Both vehicles screeched to a halt. "Come down, Habibti," Uncle Hassan called out, his voice carrying even through the bus windows. "You're sick. We'll help you get better." Sarah looked directly at his car, then at the shelter van. She pulled something from her pocket, a flash drive on a chain around her neck. "I'm not crazy," she said clearly, her words picked up by her still streaming phone propped on the bridge rail. Then she jumped. The water was freezing, swollen from the storm. Both rescue teams dove in after her, but the current was too strong. I watched Uncle Hassan wade in up to his chest before being pulled back by his brothers. The women from the shelter threw ropes that fell short. Sarah's body wasn't found. The family claimed she'd been mentally ill, driven to Sewerslide by delusions. Others whispered she'd been pulled from the water downstream by sympathetic fishermen, smuggled across the border. Her live stream had cut off when her phone hit the water, leaving her fate unknown. My sister Amira did something extraordinary that same day. While the family searched for Sarah, she led child services to our grandfather's grave. The headstone was loose. Beneath it, wrapped in plastic, were hundreds of marriage certificates dating back 60 years. The documents revealed the truth that shattered everything. My mother's name was on the first certificate, married at 11 to my father. My grandmother's certificate showed she was 10. Every woman in our family was both victim and perpetrator, trapped in a generational cycle of abuse. Their signatures appeared on their daughters' certificates, complicit in perpetuating what had been done to them. The evidence was overwhelming, but complicated. Prosecuting meant destroying women who'd been victims themselves. The younger generation would be saved by condemning mothers and grandmothers who'd had no choice in their own fates. During my trial, I sat as the sole defendant while the family walked free. The prosecutor painted me as a cult leader who'd driven vulnerable girls to mental illness. My public defender barely tried to counter the narrative. The confession I'd signed was the star evidence, but something was happening outside the courtroom. The live streams had spread beyond our community. Other girls in similar situations began faking mental illness, using our techniques. The madness defense went viral in closed forums, spreading through whisper networks. 6 months into my 5-year sentence, a postcard arrived. No signature, just coordinates. The location was a women's shelter in Canada. More postcards followed from different locations: Seattle, Portland, Vancouver. The Underground Railroad had evolved, adapted. The institutionalized girls began recovering memories despite the suppression therapy. Their artwork grew bolder, messages clearer. One girl managed to escape during a supervised outing, following symbols other survivors had left in public spaces. Prison visitors brought news from outside. 3 more families had seen their marriageable daughters develop sudden mental illness. The symptoms were spreading faster than the families could contain them. Psychiatric wards filled with girls performing madness so convincingly that even experts struggled to differentiate performance from genuine trauma. Uncle Hassan visited me once in prison. He looked older, grayer. "The bloodline is polluted now," he said quietly. "No one wants our daughters anymore. They're all considered defective." I said nothing, but we both knew the truth. The madness strategy had worked too well. By teaching girls to fake mental illness, we'd created a generation unmarriageable by their standards. The very purity the families obsessed over had been contaminated beyond repair. Priya the nurse started a new job at a women's clinic in another state. She sent coded messages through approved channels. Former victims were becoming nurses, teachers, social workers. They were embedding themselves in systems where they could identify and help others. The family's financial structure began collapsing. The dowries and bride prices that funded their lifestyle dried up. Younger men refused marriages to defective girls. The elder generation found themselves without the generational wealth transfer they'd depended on. My mother visited once, looking haunted. She didn't speak about the certificates found in grandfather's grave, but her eyes held a recognition that hadn't been there before. She left commissary money and never came back. 2 years into my sentence, Ahmed's phone, still hidden in my belongings, received a message. A young girl claiming to be his daughter from his second wife. She was 12, the age her mother had been when married. She was asking for help. I taught my cellmate the signs to look for, the code words to spread. He taught others. Guards' daughters learned to twitch at dinner tables. The strategy spread through prison visitors to communities we'd never reached. By year 3, the psychiatric hospitals had adapted. They developed new protocols for distinguishing performed madness from genuine illness. But the girls adapted too, their performances evolving, becoming more sophisticated. It became an arms race between detection and deception. Some girls were caught and forced into marriages anyway. Others disappeared into the network. Justice was partial, imperfect, Pyrrhic. For every girl saved, another was lost. The system persisted but weakened, corrupted from within by its own tools of control. Uncle Hassan's final visit came in my 4th year. He sat across from me in the visiting room, his hands trembling with age or rage. "You destroyed us," he said. "Centuries of tradition, gone." "No," I replied. "You destroyed yourselves the day you decided daughters were property." He left, without another word. I heard later he'd moved back to the old country, where the traditions still held strong. But even there, whispers of the madness defense were spreading. The art teacher Alexandra kept visiting the institutionalized girls. Slowly, carefully, she helped them reduce their medications, sharpen their minds. 2 more escaped. 3 others aged out of marriageable range while institutionalized, saved by time, if not by justice. On my release day, no family waited for me, but a van from a halfway house was there, driven by a woman with familiar eyes. She didn't speak until we were miles from the prison. "Sarah says hello," she said quietly. "She's studying to be a lawyer now, Canadian law." The halfway house was full of men like me, brothers, cousins, uncles who'd chosen their daughter's freedom over family honor. We shared strategies, evolved the network, prepared for the next generation's fight. I found work at a warehouse, lived quietly, stayed off social media, but the postcards kept coming. Each one a girl saved, a life reclaimed. The madness strategy had become bigger than any of us, a viral defense against an ancient violence. 5 years after that Thursday gathering, I stood outside the mosque where I'd been thrown down the steps. The building was for sale. The congregation had shrunk, families scattered or broken. Inside, a few old men prayed to emptiness. My phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number, a photo of a young girl in a graduation cap, holding a diploma. In the background, barely visible, was Sarah, alive, free, fighting the system from within now. The war for our girls' freedom wasn't over. It had evolved, gone underground, spread beyond our control. Some battles we'd won, others we'd lost. But in teaching girls to perform madness, we'd given them something precious, the knowledge that resistance was possible, that traditions could be broken, that sometimes the crazy ones were the sanest of all.